This changes everything for the Memphis Grizzlies as one of their most tenured players just played his last game in the 2024-2025 regular season. Brandon Clarke might have just played his last game overall as a Memphis Grizzly. Major implications for his absence moving forward. Also, a tiny little update from Taylor Jenkins regarding the Ja Morant situation, and two Memphis Grizzlies that could be key in Clarke's absence. But what's going on, everybody? I'm Jared Alatorre coming at you with another video for Grizzlies Digest, your home for everything Grizzlies related. Make sure to hit that subscribe button if you find yourself here on a regular basis. We know we're young, we're growing, but do hit that subscribe button so you never miss another upload from us. But getting into the content, this is from DeMichael Cole, goes into Brandon Clarke's injury. He says Clarke will miss the remainder of the season with a high-grade PCL sprain. The team announced that over the weekend whenever they were playing up against the Portland Trail Blazers. And this is obviously an unfortunate injury because Clarke, I always think of him as one of the core four guys, along with him, Ja Morant, Jaren Jackson Jr., and Desmond Bane, is kind of the de facto veteran leader of the group. And his presence is just amazing. I mean, he is a physical guy who's, I think, a great defender, but he's been getting better throughout his career at rolling to the rim, a great slasher, and he's, like I said, the kind of de facto leader of the squad. So it's going to be up to a lot of guys, and we'll get into two specific ones in just a moment. But getting into the injury itself, because it was a little obscure, and here he goes against Scoot Henderson. Scoot drives inside, he spins, Clarke falls down, and it looked like just a routine thing of just a guy going down to the floor, a little bit gimpy getting up, but it didn't look like anything too out of the ordinary. But of course, you know, I'm not in his shoes, we're not in his shoes, so you know, sometimes those non-contact to slight contact injuries can be just absolutely deadly, and in this case, that's what it was for Brandon Clarke. I want to take a look at his stat line. 8.3 points a game, 5.1 rebounds, 1 assist per game, 0.6 blocks per game, 0.8 steals a game. And he's a very efficient field goal percentages, shooting 62%. Of course, he's not like this, you know, superstar that's flying around, you know, all the time, you know, getting, you know, all these points. But like I said, I mean, he's a physical guy who I really liked on the defensive end, and his presence is going to be missed I think on both sides of the ball, but he's just a really tough physical guy that does all the dirty work, setting screens, going to the rim, getting lobs, getting dunks, and you just don't make him anymore in today's NBA. And if it was his last game as a Memphis Grizzly, he's going to be sorely missed. And but of course, yeah, I certainly hope Memphis keeps him. It's going to take some work, though. I think we're in for a busy U-Haul for folks in Memphis, may possibly this offseason, but of course we'll get to that. Of course, after the season ends, we'll get to all of that because I think there's going to be a lot of content coming our way for the end of the regular season and into playoffs and into the offseason. But going into what the big man rotation will look like without Brandon Clarke, obviously Jaren Jackson Jr., Aldama Bagley, and at the center position you've got Edey and Huff. There have been certain situations, even in just the Clippers game, which unfortunately the Grizzlies fell again to. We saw, for a few minutes, we saw both Edey and Huff on the court at the same time. We don't usually see that very often, but sometimes whenever you need size and whenever you need some long-range shooting, Jay Huff can provide that for you. Zach Edey, we know he's a big physical specimen underneath the basket, and he's just, again, he's a rookie. I know there's been a lot of chatter about him and how his game is going to translate to the NBA, but I mean, look at Jalen Wells. His ceiling is growing pretty much every day this season. But even for Edey, he's got a lot of raw talent, and even if he doesn't start, you know, he can come off the bench and provide you with, you know, about 4 quick, easy buckets. He can get into double-digit rebounds, I think, more times than not. He can provide some valuable, defense. He can get blocks pretty much anytime he wants to. I think his lateral quickness needs to get a little better, but also he's a very raw guy, just like he was coming out of college. I think that if they're going to start Edey, we're just going to see the same thing we've been seeing whenever Edey plays, like only 15 to 19 minutes in the game. So if you want that spark off the bench, I think we're going to see Jackson Jr. and Aldama start, with Jackson Jr. at the 5, Aldama at the 4, and then Edey coming in for, for either or. I mean, he could sub in for either or, but I think it'll be Jackson Jr. and Aldama starting, and then you have Edey coming off the bench. I think it's a game-by-game basis, but nonetheless, it's going to be pretty complicated moving forward because you do have the Jazz, which the Grizzlies should win that. I think they'll beat the Jazz even with the stuff they got going on right now with Brandon Clarke and Ja Morant. And then you got a gauntlet to end March. Okay, you got the Lakers, you got the Thunder, you got the Celtics. You got the Celtics on national TV, and usually with the Lakers, I mean, I don't know what happened with them over the weekend, but they lost pretty badly at home to the Chicago Bulls in the first game back for LeBron James. Luka Doncic was playing, and of course you got Austin Reeves, who's becoming maybe the best third option in the league. Then you got the Thunder, who they're not slowing down the gas pedal at all. After the latest Cavaliers slump, the Thunder have become the unspoken best team in the world. And of course you got the defending champion Celtics, who, they're pretty tough for anybody, but for the Grizzlies, when you don't have Ja Morant and you don't have their full rotation, it's pretty tough to beat a team like Boston. But now with Brandon Clarke out, we talked about him a little bit. Aldama, he's a great shooter. I think he's become more of a confident player, more of a confident slasher. He's really added more to his bag pretty much every season. He's going to be one of those two to have an impact. And by the way, this was a article from Paris Sharkey in regards to two guys that can lead the team, can substitute for Brandon Clarke moving forward. Santi Aldama will be one of those guys. And then you've got Gigi Jackson, who he credited for being a good young talent who can provide some good minutes off the bench. He did go after his defense and his defensive presence, but he also went after the whole team's defensive presence, because it's not been just Gigi, it's been the whole team. He was assigned, of course, to the Memphis Hustle a week ago, but who knows if the Grizzlies will bring him back for the playoffs. Maybe, maybe not, but those could be two guys that are going to have to step up in Brandon Clarke's absence. And now, which you've got Taylor Jenkins, who had a little bit of an update regarding Ja Morant after the Clippers game. He says Ja is working his tail off to get back out there. Obviously, health is the biggest factor, but that allows us to have the chemistry and all that. Later goes on to say, we just got to get back to playing the defensive intensity. Now, we talked about the speed. We've lost that over the last month or so. And he specifically talks about after the All-Star break, and I know he's not going to get into the LaRavia Smart trade, but it was really kind of starting after that, whenever things started to go kind of a little bit downhill. Of course, we've had Ja Morant be inconsistent in getting to the court, and it's just been, a nightmare for the Grizzlies and their injuries, because we know how deep this team can be. But let's be honest, they've got a gauntlet. They're on a losing streak right now. I think they're getting some much needed rest after that Clippers game. I think they need some time to adjust to Brandon Clarke's injury and how they're going to rotate with all these bigs moving forward. But that's going to do it for us. You can, of course, like this video, comment on this video, share this video, leave a comment down below on what this team's going to look like without Brandon Clarke. Was his veteran leadership presence that important to the point where Memphis is just not going to be the same team as we saw 3 months ago? And what's it going to look like when Ja Morant comes back? Can he help lead this team to some impressive wins, because right now, with Memphis at the 5 seed, Lakers at the 4 seed, the season we're in today would be a Lakers-Grizzlies matchup. How badly does Memphis really need Ja Morant? Because it's looking like very urgent times right now for Memphis if they want to avoid that play-in. Even though they're in the 5th seed, that play-in spot, they're kind of teetering on that line. Let us know in the comments what you think. Jared Alator for Grizzlies Digest, as always. Thank you so much. We'll see you in the next video. Peace.